Hi, this is Greg of Toystorian Enterprises, and I'm here to give you some pointers for designing your own custom dice icons in raster graphics applications. Creating designs which will end up at the size of a 16mm die face takes certain considerations, so hopefully these work tips which I use will help you as well. When creating a new document in your graphics app, some custom modifications need to be made. First off, change the document's working units to millimeters. Then give the document a width of 64mm and a height of 64mm as well. You can change the document's resolution down to 72, just in case you utilize any low-resolution images found on the internet. Here's our new blank canvas, so to speak. It is 64mm across and 64mm high. Now we can't use this entire canvas edge to edge with our artwork. A 4mm margin around the edges needs to be maintained to guarantee good engraving. This engraving safety area should be defined so that we can make sure all the art and text fits within this safety area. These guides I've created mark this area, which ends up being 56mm by 56mm. That way, anything I put within this 56mm square area will be engraved neatly on the die face and not cause the laser to make unwanted etchings on any of the other adjacent faces. Right now, some of you may be asking, why a 64mm size document? Why at the low 72 dpi resolution? These are our suggested minimums for best image resolution for those of you working in a raster-based graphics app like Photoshop or Microsoft Paint. We're working at a larger scale here, in this case 4 times larger, 64mm. This is no arbitrary number. It's tied in with the artwork's resolution quality as well. When we receive your image files, we will be scaling these 64mm images down to 16mm for engraving on the dice. When we scale the image's size down 4 times, we will be scaling up the image's resolution 4 times, from 72 dpi to 288 dpi. In the end, your artwork will be engraved at 16mm square at a minimum resolution of 288 dpi. There are other minimums to keep in mind when creating your artwork. At this 64mm scale, the thinnest stroke used on any lines is 2 point. If in your app you're drawing lines using a solid rectangle tool, then 0.5mm is the thinnest measurement suggested. When placing engraved lines or other engraved areas near each other, there needs to be a minimum space of 2mm between the engraves. This minimum space of 2mm is for the 64mm scale and will guarantee that there will be die material left between the engraved areas at 16mm. Otherwise, the engravings will bleed into each other, causing the engravings to look merged together. How do you tell if there's at least 2mm between engravings? Do what I do and make a space line that has a 3-point stroke. The width of a 3-point stroke is the same as 2mm here at this 64mm scale. Make this space line a different color too. I made mine green. Move your space line around to check to make sure there's at least 2mm of space between areas. Now, working with text and fonts have their own set of considerations. At this 64mm scale, you can have text as small as 16 point, which is the same as 4 point at 16mm scale. But keep in mind what kind of font you are using. Something simple and clean can work at any size, but something more ornate is limited in the size it can be used. Also, any thin tapering lines may need to be boosted to ensure good engraving by giving the text a 2-point stroke. Just keep an eye on interior spaces to make sure there will be die material left between engravings. Otherwise, a character could turn out to be an engraved blob. Also, check the spacing between characters as well, so their engravings won't bleed into each other. The space line is also helpful when dealing with solid engraving areas. Here's an example of engraving a star-shaped area, with die material on the inside, and more area engraved in the center, but leaving die material in the middle for the number. Using the space line, you can see that just enough material will remain between these engravings. Also, check the thickness of the text character, so it too will have enough die material left. All artwork need to be done in black and white only. No shades of gray or color. The laser engraver reads black as the areas to be engraved and ignores white. So, if we were to engrave this, the text characters would be cut into the die face. And with this, The laser would engrave out all the area within that black circle, leaving the white text areas untouched. When you've completed creating your custom dice icon artwork for all 6 sides, you will submit to us 6 separate files, one for each individual die face. And the file formats you will be submitting to us will be in your choice of .jpeg, .png, or .tiff, exported out from whichever raster graphics app you happen to be working in. If you are using Photoshop, then you can submit a single Photoshop file in the .psd file format. That Photoshop file will have 6 layers, one for each die face. More details on how and where to submit your files will be sent to backers only at the successful end of this project. Thanks again for backing us, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with for your custom dice.